Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at the massive, intricate, and honestly sometimes fragile web that connects almost every single product you use daily. We're talking about the global trading system. We'll start with the big macro trends completely reshaping the world economy, and then we'll dive into a really fascinating case study of a nation that's rapidly transforming its position on the global stage, India. Okay, let's dive into this.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start with a macro view of the global trade machine, look at what exactly we're trading, and explore our shifting global map. Then we'll zoom right in on India to check out its specific trade position, its key partners, and its strategy for the future.
Section 1. The Global Trade Machine. Think of this as the economy's circulatory system.
World trade is basically the primary mechanism through which nations leverage their comparative advantages. It's how countries focus on what they actually do best. Think of it literally as the circulatory system of our global economy. It pumps all the necessary nutrients, goods, services, innovations, wherever they need to go. But just like a real circulatory system, it can suffer from blockages. Organizations like the World Trade Organization, or WTO, were designed to regulate and smooth out these flows, acting as the rules engine for global commerce. But right now, they are facing some immense challenges. Things like the global financial crisis, the pandemic, rising protectionism, and a heavily gridlocked WTO have acted like clogged arteries, exposing the severe vulnerabilities of our highly interconnected supply chains.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Notice that deep, sharp dip in 2020? That's when the pandemic shocked the system, halted production, and basically closed international borders. But then, look at that massive, almost V-shaped rebound in 2021 when economies reopened and all that pent-up demand just exploded. Even with some slight declines recently because of inflation and economic slowdowns, the sheer volume of trade is still staggering. To put a number on it, total world merchandise imports in 2024 hit an incredible $24.7 trillion.
Section 2. What are we trading? Moving way beyond finished goods.
So with trillions of dollars changing hands every single year, what exactly are we moving? Well, while manufactured goods still account for over 60% of total trade value, the actual nature of these goods has fundamentally changed. To understand modern trade, you really have to understand global value chains, or GVCs. This is the fragmentation of production across different countries. Instead of making a product entirely in one single factory, companies are now shipping intermediate goods, like parts, components, and semi-finished products, across multiple borders for further processing and assembly.
Let's make this tangible with something you probably have in your pocket right now, a smartphone. A single smartphone might feature a high-tech display manufactured in Japan, memory chips fabricated in Korea, a core processor designed in Taiwan, and then all of those parts are shipped over to China for final assembly, before being exported to the rest of the world. Now, this fragmentation creates incredible cost efficiencies, but it also means that a disruption at any single node in this chain can bring the whole process to a grinding halt.
Because of these incredibly complex supply chains, intermediate goods, those parts and components we just talked about, now account for over 50% of all world trade in goods. More than half of what is moving across the oceans right now isn't a final product ready for a store shelf. It's just a piece of a larger puzzle waiting to be put together.
Section 3. A shifting global trade map. Specifically, the phenomenal rise of Asia.
For the longest time, global trade was completely dominated by the triad of North America, Western Europe, and Japan. But the economic center of gravity has decidedly shifted. If we look at the top traders of 2024, China is the undisputed world's biggest seller, exporting over $3.5 trillion worth of goods. On the flip side, the United States is the world's biggest buyer, importing nearly $3.4 trillion. Germany sits firmly in third place for both. What this really highlights is our deep global interconnectedness. These top economies rely heavily on each other, both as massive markets for their goods and as vital sources for their domestic consumption.
And looking at the regions, Asia's dominance is crystal clear. They currently hold a massive 36.7% share of world merchandise exports. Asia has completely transformed from a peripheral player into an absolute engine of both supply and demand. What's also super fascinating is the rise of South-South trade. This means trade flowing directly between developing economies. Fueled mostly by Asia's explosive growth, this developing-to-developing nation trade now counts for over a quarter of all world trade, fundamentally changing those historical North-South trade patterns.
So, the crucial point is, where does India fit into all of this? Section 4. India's position in world trade. A paradoxical power.
Ever since its inward-looking policies shifted with the 1991 economic reforms, India has stepped up as a major global player, but its trade profile is full of striking paradoxes. Here's a wild one. India is highly vulnerable when it comes to energy. It is a massive net importer of crude oil. And yet, because they've built these world-class processing refineries, their number one export is actually refined petroleum products, like diesel and gasoline. Basically, they buy the raw material, process the heck out of it, and sell it right back to the world. It's a huge foreign exchange earner, though it operates on margins tied incredibly closely to volatile global energy prices.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark reality of India's structural merchandise trade deficit. You see that persistent sea of red bars? They consistently import way more goods than they export. Why? Well, because fueling their rapidly growing economy and building out all that infrastructure requires massive imports of crude oil, electronics, and heavy machinery. Until domestic production scales up to meet that demand, this structural deficit is going to remain a major macroeconomic vulnerability.
Section 5. India's key trading partners. This is all about balancing the globe.
To manage all of these massive needs, India plays a highly diversified, multi-regional strategy, utilizing initiatives like its Act East policy. Their partner network is a constant, delicate balancing act. The United States is India's largest export destination. It's a very strategic relationship built on IT services, pharmaceuticals, and polished diamonds. But in stark contrast, China is India's largest source of imports by a really wide margin. India leans heavily on China for critical electronics and machinery inputs. Meanwhile, the UAE serves as a vital energy and trading hub, and the European Union brings in the advanced machinery and foreign direct investment that are absolutely necessary for India's ongoing industrialization.
Section 6. Navigating India's trade future. Moving from the periphery right to the center.
Recognizing its vulnerabilities, India is actively rolling out policies to shift from just being a participant to becoming a central hub in world trade. Right now, they're facing two major structural hurdles. First, shallow integration in global value chains. India often exports raw materials or totally finished goods, meaning they miss out on those highly lucrative middle-step intermediate manufacturing phases. Second, a lack of export diversification. They have a relatively low share of complex, high-tech manufactured goods compared to their East Asian rivals. But they have a plan. To fix this, India has launched solutions like Atmanirbhar Bharat, which translates to Self-Reliant India, and Production-Linked Incentive, or PLI schemes. These are explicitly designed to boost their domestic manufacturing competitiveness and basically pull high-value global supply chains directly onto Indian soil.
And that brings us to the ultimate question as we wrap up this explainer. The global trade machine is actively rerouting as we speak. With geopolitical shifts pushing companies all over the world to diversify their supply chains, the window of opportunity is wide open. If India can successfully execute these massive manufacturing and logistical reforms, can it actually transform from a peripheral player into the vital, beating heart of global supply networks? It is absolutely one of the most consequential economic stories unfolding today, and for sure one we're going to keep our eyes on. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the shifting center of gravity in world trade.